All right, folks, thanks for being here. We're going to go straight to questions. We're going to open up with Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Hi, Ryan. What are some things maybe about Will Howard that we don't see that stands out about him? Maybe some things behind the scenes that really impress you?
I think you get a chance to see his demeanor when you guys get an opportunity to spend time with him. And I think you're getting to see his command the more you watch him play. I think that's probably the thing that jumps out, and also just an air of confidence that he has experience, in big time games, and he's played a lot of college football. So to me, those are the big things that jumped out early on, and we're only 2 games in, but it's good to see him getting more and more comfortable every day he's in the building.
Dan Holt, Letterman Row.
Ryan, you had mentioned last week on the radio that Lorenzo's earned the right to play more on defense. What have you guys seen from him that you think can make him an asset to the defense?
Well, anytime you play well on special teams, you're earning more and more trust with the staff, and that's something that we've always preached here. And Brandon was the special teams player of the week in week 1, Lorenzo in week 2. So the more and more trust you're building, you're just getting an opportunity to do that. And so we'll see how that all shakes out game to game, and based on the scheme going in that week, or what we're seeing in terms of our opponent. But somebody who's competing every day in practice, he's giving great effort on special teams. You see him show up in coverage, getting his hands on balls. Effort, is and that's big, for us right now in terms of we want the hardest playing guys in the country, and he's shown that he'll do that.
Bill Landis, Kings of the North, the podcast.
Ryan, you've spoken a couple of times about trying to figure out what the offense's, I think, fastball is going to be, just sort of the thing you kind of hang your head on. How is that process going? And I guess, where do you think you are in figuring that out?
Yeah, no, I think we're getting there. I still think that, it's early in the process, but I think you saw a little bit of that last Saturday, just in terms of the mix that we have, and some of the schemes that we're running, running inside zone, running stretch, getting the ball in the perimeter, mixing in play action passes, trying to get the ball into our guys' hands, the mixture of all those things, along with the quarterback run, mixing up tempos, those type of things, put stress on the defense. And I think our guys are getting more and more comfortable. We always want to have a combination of zone schemes and gap schemes up front, and we're starting to get there. We're still not where we need to be. We still don't, have a full complement of stuff out there just yet, but we're building towards that right now. But I think at least the balance that we had and the energy we played with, a couple weeks ago is what we're looking for. But it's just a starting point.
I don't know if frustration is the right word to use in terms of not playing last week, but when you think about that process, is not having a game in the 3rd week of the season any kind of impediment as you try to develop that?
I mean, I think it could be but it's just based on how you approach it. And, our approach was that this, it is what it is, and we're going to have to handle it. And so we went out there and we had an improvement week, and I felt like we had, 3 hard physical days out there, and got a chance to step away for a couple of days and watch some games on Saturday, and kind of asked everybody to do that, get some rest. It gives you good perspective. You get the chance to see some games, see some situational things to learn from, get to see some other teams out there. You're just watching the game, in your living room is a different experience. So I think, our guys got a chance to get some of that. We visited on Sunday, had team meeting, went out there, had our typical Sunday routine. That was good. And now we'll get back here on Tuesday. But, the idea was to get better. I think we did do that last week. And so now we'll get back into game week here. But we tried to keep the same rhythm last week as we rolled through it.
Third row right, Stefan Kreisnig, Cleveland.com.
You talked about Will Howard, kind of how he's gotten more comfortable day by day. Have you kind of seen the same from Quinn Sean from when he came in and kind of learned this offense? And what has he kind of added with his experience in the locker room?
Yeah, same. He's learned the offense. I think that there's certain things that, we do that's different than where he came from. So, learning that was something he jumped into early on. He and Travion have a great relationship. They work hard in that room. I think Carlos has done a good job of building a rapport in that room, and a physicality and a toughness and a mindset. So, again, just getting started, but you can see, what he can do with the ball in his hands, and the explosiveness and the power he has when he runs. And, in protection, I thought he did a good job, picking up a couple things too. So he's growing, he's building, but you can see, what a weapon he is for us when he's out there.
All right, Dave Holmes, WSYX.
Ryan, you said talking about watching the game Saturday. When you're a college football fan, what's that day look like? I mean, what are we eating? What are we drinking? What are we watching in the games? I mean, is there stuff you're looking for that maybe a regular fan's not? Just what's your bye-week fan experience?
Yeah, you get up in the morning, have breakfast with the family and try to spend some time and, with the family the best you can. I talk to our guys about, balance is not an equal distribution of time and energy. It's a building high ground for hard times. And you do that through faith, family, and friends. And so, you got to get around your family and get around your faith and get around your friends a little bit, but we don't have a whole bunch of time for that. So you get that done in the morning, and then the game started at noon, and we all just needed to get off our feet and rest a little bit and kick our feet up. But you watch the games, and now you get a chance to watch multiple games at once. I'm sure a lot of people do that now, and so you bounce from game to game, and you just watch. You watch the coaches, you watch the players, you watch the demeanor, you watch the body types, you watch the situations. You learn from it. It just gives you a great perspective as you don't find yourself in those situations very often, especially early in the season. So it's something that I think our guys had an opportunity to do, and we brought up some of those situations on Sunday. Learned from a few of the game situations, in game, end of game. And, I think it's just healthy to do that when you have that opportunity.
Tony Gertman, Buckeye Huddle.
Talking about Will Howard getting more comfortable, how much credit do the receivers in this building get for making him more comfortable?
Yeah, it's everybody involved. It's the protection. And that involves the tight ends, the running backs, but obviously the offensive line. That's a big part of it. But the receivers, have a strong hand in creating a comfort level of, if you are man-to-man and you throw it anywhere, kind of this area, I'm going to go make a play. So let me go do that. And then that's really their job is in man-to-man is to get open and catch the ball. And it's Will's job to give him a chance to catch it. And then when you get zone, you have to space out the routes. And then now it's the quarterback's job to work the underneath defenders. Again, the protection's a big part of it, but for a wideout to win versus man-to-man and space it out versus zone, that's their job, and being strong with the ball in their hands and then also ball security. So all those things play into it. And, these guys have worked hard in the offseason. They worked hard during the preseason, and they continue to work hard to build that chemistry and rapport and timing, and all those things are important. So, it all goes hand in hand.
He said that you guys told him if they're pressed one-on-one, they're open, throw it, that sort of thing. Did you have to repeat those things, or were these just one time you tell him and he's good to go?
There's a lot of things that are said multiple times over and over again, and that's what you do as a coach. But all of our quarterbacks, pick things up quickly, and that's important. But those are things you're continually talking about. And the good thing is when you're about to say it, when it happens on a play, and you're about to say it, and they finish the sentence for you, that's when you're on the same page. And we're starting to see some of that.
Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
You talked in the preseason about the idea of Caleb Downs potentially playing some offense. Is that still something you're interested in or pursuing, or is that just kind of a break glass in case of emergency kind of thing? I guess how much did James Peoples' emergence and feeling confident in him change maybe your perspective on it?
Both. I think right now, we're focused on Caleb being the best safety in America and, doing his job there. He's still working as a punt returner. I don't think we're quite there where we need to, get involved with him in the run game just yet. Not that we won't as the season goes on. But no, and I think, it's been great to see James and good to see Sam get some carries in the game. So, our depth at all positions is going to be, tried this year. So, he'll be an option if need be, but right now we're going to just focus on safety.
Jeff Gilbert, Press Pros, third row left.
Coach, in terms of special teams, you're more involvement this year with it. You haven't had a close game yet where a special teams play could have hurt you. That's coming. Those games are coming. How much more confident are you in that? Thinking most specifically about punt either way.
Yeah. I think every day, meeting on it, talking through it, I feel much more involved with it. I feel like I'm much more in control of it than I was probably in the past, and making sure you have the right guys in the right spots. And so, yeah, we're going to keep grinding on it every day. We want to get better in every way. We want to grab every inch we can possibly grab. And those, that's a phase that can be critical, as in some of those, some of those situation. So we'll keep grinding on it. I do feel like, our staff is fully engaged in it. I feel like our team is. I think they see it, they feel it. All coaches are involved, including myself. So, we're not where we need to be, but, we are seeing good effort there, and that's a great starting point.
Far left, Joe Nugent, WCMH.
With Donovan Jackson moving in a good direction the last few weeks, do you know if he'll play Saturday?
Yeah, he's ready to roll. As long as we have a good week of practice, he'll be ready to go for Saturday.
And Austin Cerebell, what type of value did those last two games provide for him going forward?
Yeah, he's going to still play, and we'll figure out how that looks. But he's done a nice job in the first couple games, and for stepping in that spot, I think that's provided us some depth that we didn't know we had going into the preseason.
Fifth row right, Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Brian, I think maybe from the outside in the offseason, you lose guys like Tommy and Steele, maybe the depth at linebacker or the uncertainty of just kind of experience the question. Through 2 games, you've seen that depth grow, that rotation grow. What have you liked about really all 4 of those guys that have really not fit, or that whole room that's really fit well together?
Again, it's just a start. So I don't really like to summarize where guys are at right now. We got a lot of football to go. But you see what you see in the first couple games. You see a lot of great effort. You see guys running the ball. You see guys making plays, and that's exciting. And the challenges are going to keep getting more and more difficult as time goes on. So we're going to have to play with three linebackers in the game if they're in bigger personnel groupings. So that's at the very least you got to play with 3. But you lose a couple guys, you're playing with 4 and 5. So just like every position, we got to do that. But good to see, even in the first game, not having Cody, seeing guys step up, and it's important. I mean, that's a position where you got to do a lot of prep work. You got to know how to fit the runs, and you got to be involved with the coverages. You got to make the checks. Cody, and if Cody's not in there, the Mike linebacker's got the green dot, so he's making all the communication from Jim. So it's a lot of work, and but we're seeing some good play there. We're seeing some good effort. So again, good starting point, but a long way to go.
Fifth row left, Noah Weisskopf, The Lantern.
Ryan, what have you seen on the Marshall from watching them so far? What do you think? Did they do exceptionally well?
Yeah, they have a very good staff. Coach Huff is very well respected, and does a great job in recruiting. Does a good job with his team. Has been a very good coach in college football for a long time, and he's hired a very good staff, a mix of youth and experience, and he gets his guys to play hard. They're athletic. They got a big front, on the defensive side, and they have an identity on offense. They want to spread you out and throw it around a little bit, and mix some runs in. I think he does a very, very good job, and they're going to come in here, and they're going to play open and free, and we'll have a great environment, so they're going to be jacked up for that, but a lot of respect for the program and what he does.
Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, you were talking earlier about showing guys some clips of things from over the weekend. How often do you guys do that, especially early in the season? Maybe when situations don't arise in your games, but you might see them crop up in other games. How often are you able to use other games?
Periodically, coming off of a weekend where we don't play, it allows us more opportunity, and I can grab a couple of the coaches and say, hey, can we put some of this stuff together? I watched this. Can you put these clips together, and then we can go on it. When you have a little bit more time, that allows you to do that. When that happens, we'll do those things. Usually coming off of a game, there's just so many things that we need to, hit on coming off the game, watching the game film, that typically we're just going to focus on ourselves. But depending on what we have, coming off the game and what we have coming up the next week, we'll just make a determination. Only so many hours in the day. But when we can find these teachable moments, we try to do that just to bring awareness to everybody. And sometimes it's the coaches, sometimes it's the staff, just to make them think, what are we going to do in these types of situations? And then how are we going to respond?
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Right. Statistically this year, Will's been really sort of the upper end of the spectrum in terms of being really efficient out of play action pass. I'm just wondering from your perspective, what's made him really effective in those type of situations?
Well, I think it starts with the runs. When you're running the ball, now you have to be more aggressive. Safety's got to get lower. You got to put an extra guy in the box, which opens up things down the field. But I think the work we put in on the timing of some of those concepts, and the protection's been strong, like I've said, but it's timing those things up and marrying up the run game, with the play action pass as they go hand in hand, and then there's the RPOs, which are similar to that as well. But you're looking to always complement the runs with some sort of play action pass to put people in conflict. And, Chip's always done that. And, we've always done that here is, on just about every play, you want to put somebody in conflict, whether you're just turning the ball and handing the ball off. It's a safety or something, or maybe a linebacker with a play action pass, or you're reading somebody in the RPO world. And so putting guys in conflict is what we're looking for. So marrying those things up is important. But I think the timing has been good so far. But again, just a small sample size.
Chip, part of Chip's thing, has he done in the past stop? Does it Will have the skill set for it as well?
Yeah, I think all the above. I think everything is a big part of it. We got a lot of great minds in that room, and I think Will can see it well from his size. He can stand in that pocket and see over the line. I think that does have something to do with it. But it's everybody. It's the design, it's the protection, it's the routes, it's all the above. But ultimately, he has to deliver the ball.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
You spent a lot of time in fall camp, just kind of in the nicest way, just calling out Jelani Thurman and needing to see more from him. And it feels like with G, Will, and him, you guys have just kind of rotated those guys, which has probably been a benefit than just playing Kate Stover as much as you did the last couple of years. What have you seen from him specifically over the first two games that let you know that he's headed in the right direction?
I think it's his ability to be coached. We're coaching him really, really hard, and he just keeps playing the next play. He doesn't let the last play affect the next, whether it's a good play or a bad play, and just playing through that. And the more reps he's getting in the stadium, the better it is for him. So we want to continue to play through that. I think his attention to detail has been better. It's improved. I think his focus in meetings has improved. And so every day he puts, stacks these days, the better he's going to be. But, just even attention to detail when he's in the special teams meeting, he's focused, he's locked in, he's got questions, he's got answers. I mean, those are all the things you're looking for somebody who's trying to build trust with not only the coaches, but his teammates. And so if he can keep building on that and keep growing, again, I feel like the sky's the limit for him.
Austin, if you needed it, play that Bison role that you've used over the last couple of years here? Is that as a tight end depth maybe not allowed you not have to use that as a
Well, we do have more depth at tight end, but now with getting Donnie back, you would have that as an option if need be. So we'll, it hasn't really come up a bunch, but if we need that type of situation, now you have somebody that you trust that has earned the trust from guys around him by the way he's played in those first couple games.
Deep left, Tim Hall, 97.1 defense.
Ryan, did you see CJ Stroud's sideline pass when he was getting ripped down this weekend? And what did you say to yourself when you saw that?
No, I actually didn't see it. I did watch a few of the plays, and somebody had said to me, he just made a sick throw, but I never caught it with my eyes. But I did text him after the game, and just proud of the way he's handled himself, the way he's endeared himself into that organization, the way he's built hope into that organization, and the way guys are rallying around him, the way he's playing. Just couldn't be prouder of the way he's going about his business on a day-to-day basis, and he's got a lot of people here pulling for him.
Austin Ward, podcast.
Right. I don't know if Donovan's situation is comparable at all to what Jackson went through 2 years ago. Maybe it's not, but either way, did that process that JSN went through change anything with the way you want to manage injuries when they're close, like Donovan maybe was a week and a half ago? Length of the season maybe playing into that as well. Like, do you think there's anything that's changed about managing the health of those situations when they're close right now?
I mean, I rely on sports medicine when it comes to making these decisions, but you do use everything that you've learned in your experience to try to, help be a part of the process, and you use all types of information to figure that out. And for Donovan came back for a reason. He wants some hardware, man. He wants to play. He didn't come back to just, watch the game on the sidelines, but, it took everything we had to kind of hold him back from that game. And he was available in an emergency role. I mean, he could have played, but, all the information that we had got from our doctors in sports medicine led us to believe that, unless he was really needed, it didn't make sense to put him on a pitch count, quote unquote, in that game, but to hold him if possible. And so we made that decision, which was not easy for him to hear or do, but we did. And I think we're all glad that we did at this point. So to answer your question, ultimately, like I defer to the doctors on this, but there is constant conversation. I am a part of all those conversations, and you always look back on different situations and try to learn from it so that, you make the best decision for what you have at that moment.
I know it's 5 days away, so certainly the situation could change, but when you're reintegrating Donovan on Saturday with preference be to ease it back in because he's missed 2 weeks of game reps, take as many as possible because you're going into a Big Ten game? Like what's the decision-making process there?
Yeah, we felt like if he had a full week going into or on the improvement week, we had like a full Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and have a full week of practice this week, that he's full go and he's ready to go.
Andy Backstrom, Letterman Row.
Yeah, Ryan, the tight ends talked a lot about in the offseason being the toughest unit on the team. Was any part of that knowing that you guys would want to deploy those 13, 14 personnel looks this season?
I think everybody is competing against each other, but there's also that competition sometimes between personnel groupings. You want to get on the field, and whether it's 10 or 11 or 13 or even 14, I mean, guys are fighting for opportunities to get in the game and play, whether it's two backs in the game, I mean, there's pride in each unit to be able to do that. So yeah, I think that, and it's a lot easier to do when you have more guys in a room, so that if you take an injury, you still can be in that grouping, where it's a little bit harder when you put a lot of work in, you invest in a grouping, and then one injury or something can happen, and then you're completely out of that grouping. And now you've spent a lot of time during the week on that, and that's a bad investment. So I think the depth of that room has allowed us to put a little more effort and emphasis in that group.
Andy Anders, 11 Warriors.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted, on the defensive tackle rotation, it seems pretty clear that Caden McDonald has emerged as that next nose guard. Who's kind of in the mix there at 3 tech? And some guys have kind of split some snaps there. It just hasn't been a clear number 2 that's equal.
Yeah, I would say, like you said, inside Heroes right there. K-Mac is right there as well. And then, we're really looking for the next couple guys to step up into that role. And I think Larry would tell you the same thing. There's a bunch of, candidates, but, that's something that I think that whole room is really pushing towards, and getting those guys to step up. You got Will, you got Taiwan, you got Jason Moore. I mean, there's some names in there of guys that we believe can do it. And so that's a challenge. We got to continue. This is all positions, but, we're looking for guys to step up in that room.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
It's probably a good thing that you haven't had to deal with a lot of different defensive situations yet, because you guys have shut down the first 2 opponents in play. But how important was it this first idle week to get some of those different situations for your defense? I know you guys haven't faced a red zone right yet.
Yeah, we work hard at red zone. Almost every day we're working in the red area. It's important. It's a different game down there. We also mixed in 2-minute. We had some 7-on-7 2-minute. We had some team 2-minute, because all those things are coming. And then at the end of the game 2-minute, and then second half or first half 2-minute. We haven't hit on that yet. We want to do a better job on that on offense, but also on defense. And then coming up and watching some of these games, even like the game that happened last night, there was a 2-minute there at the end, and just even the conversation that we had about, if we're in that situation, what do you do? And constantly talking about those types of things, and then trying to design them in practice so that we're ready when they happen, because as we all know, they're coming.
Jeremy Birmingham, the podcast.
Ryan, last few years, no matter how hard you guys have tried, it seems like the quarterback recruiting has shifted towards the end of the cycle for a number of reasons. 25 maybe feels different, but how has the last 5-6 years of quarterback recruiting shifted your philosophy moving forward? And how much does the NIL conversation, especially the quarterback, almost require you to wait a little bit further in the process?
Yeah, I think that, right. I can't mention anybody right now. So yeah, I mean, I think that when you know, but we've also been in a situation where recruiting's taken a twist or a turn, and when that does, and you've been invested in somebody, and then it, for whatever reason, it goes another way, you can find yourself in a different spot. So, we feel like, we really want to make sure that we evaluate, as much as we possibly can. When you think about like how late it was in CJ Stroud's, like, we felt great about taking CJ because we saw him play. We felt strong about, Lincoln and Devin. Those guys played late in their season, or, into the recruiting process. So, we feel good about, the guys that we have committed. We feel good about the room that we have, but we always want to make sure that it's the right fit. And what we can't do is be unsure, because it's such a huge decision. So sometimes there's more boxes that need to be checked, and we always want to be thorough in that spot.
going back to Saturday night, when you're watching other games, and do you see coaching decisions that make you scratch your head and say, man, if I get in that situation, we can't handle things that way? I'm thinking of one specific game. I'm not going to call out a coach who decided to punt when the game was on the line against the number one team in the country. But if I was going to do that, I would ask, like, do you have to put yourself in their shoes and say, what would you do?
Yeah, 1,000%. Yeah. Every time it's the end of the half, every time it's a decision you made, every time it's the end of the game, you're putting yourself in that situation. And I'm actually saying it out loud sometimes. My RJ and my wife, they'll be like, kind of talking to me about it because, I just constantly say it, and I'm just talking, okay, if this thing goes down to this, down in distance, would we go for it right here? Or, is this a timeout situation? What exactly is going on here? You get the 2-minute warning situation this year, which is very different. So you try to take as many lessons as you can and try to use it as an opportunity to play that in your head because, when you're watching a game live, there's different variables that come into play. We have, hired a consultant as an analytics group to give us information. And so they'll, give us some of the situations on a week-to-week basis on what happened the week before, and then give us feedback on the decisions that we made. So that's been helpful. But yeah, really, when you have an opportunity to watch a game, you're looking at it from that point of view.
6th row left, Jayla Van Horn, the lantern.
Coach, a big day for Marvin Harrison Jr. What did you like from him? And obviously, the first game he kind of struggled, but he came back and obviously played really good against the Rams. So what did you like from him?
Yeah, Marvin Harrison is a wonderful player, and he's going to have a great career in the NFL. So, after a week, or if it was 2 weeks or 3 weeks, Marv's going to be a great player in the NFL. He's just such a pro. He's going to translate very well in that league. So this is just the beginning, what he's able to do. And look to me like some of those were like broken plays. I thought the first one was a really great throw and a great catch in the back of the end zone. I don't know how he hung on to that one, but a really nice throw. And then a couple of them look a little bit, ad-libbed, but he's a great route runner. So, he's going to have these type of days, and, we're proud of what he's doing. And also, Paris being there as well. Those two guys, really, I know are going to have a strong impact on that organization.
We are at the 2-minute warning here. Tom Orr, Buckeye Huddle.
Matt Rule said yesterday that there's a Big Ten coaches group text or group chat. What do you guys talk about in there? And who is the funniest coach in the Big Ten?
Oh, geez, I don't know. There's a lot of us now. It's a crowded room, but it's just things that come up that everyone needs to get on the same page on. It's usually in the off season where there's some sort of legislation coming through or something that we need, consensus on to support, to move forward, to get to our ADs, or sometimes it's information. Hey, you may want to give your AD, a heads up on something like this. And so that we just get alignment across the board. So typically that group text just allows everybody to be on the same page.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, well, at right guard, I don't know that anything's officially been announced, but Tegra's obviously been the starter. Is he the starter, and what have you seen from him so far?
Yeah, he is the starter, and he's played good football. And we'll kind of see how the week plays out. And we're going to try to find ways to get Austin in the game because we feel like he's earned that opportunity. How it shakes out this week, we'll see. But right now, Tegra's the starting right guard.
What will it add to have Donovan back? We obviously know he's a good player, but what does it give you both tangibly and intangibly?
I just think this solidifies everything up front. Seth has done a very, very good job of communicating across the board. He brings a certain level of experience and stability in there with the communication. Now you add Donovan into it. I mean, that's two guys with a lot of experience. They're good communicators. They're very sharp. I think just overall, everyone's going to be on the same page even more and allow guys to communicate well because that's important. I mean, everything up front is about communication. So the more these guys can communicate and get everybody on the same page, the better we can execute.
Tim May, Letterman Row.
Yeah, just two quickies, Ryan. Number one, speaking about the offensive line, did it make that leap you wanted from first game to second game? And I know everything's always relative based on who you're blocking, so to speak. But do you like the progress there? Did you see a more cohesive unit? Just what would you see?
Yeah, I think we all saw a bunch of guys who played hard. I like the plays where we're finishing, on the touchdown to Jeremiah. You see Josh Simmons like driving a guy out of bounds. You're watching Fryer run down on the one that got called back to Quinshawn, but he's 60 yards down the field chasing guys down. I think guys were playing hard in the game. You see Integra finish guys like 6 and 7 yards down the field and pancake them. Like that's to me what we're looking for. And also the communication, making sure that we're on the same page. We're all going to the right guys. and trust your technique. I say that also all the time. You're going against Tyleek and Ty every day in practice. Like, trust what you're doing every day in practice. And, so the communication was better. It was cleaner. And I thought the effort was very, very good. And so we can build on that. Like you said, it's just the beginning. But I think there's also a certain level of confidence that, we should be continuing to grow on.
And the other thing, you watched a lot of football on Saturday. So Wisconsin loses its starting quarterback to a season-ending injury. You saw what that did to their attack. Texas loses Quinn Ewers to a abdominal strain or whatever it was. He looks like he's going to be. But the point is, do alarm bells go off in your head when you're watching that? Or do you go to Chip and go, we got to get these other guys more time, more quality time, because that could happen any moment. I mean, just what's your thinking in that regard?
It's the same thing as it was, before watching that on TV. It's we've got to build depth at every position, and obviously that's one. We got 4 guys in the game last Saturday. That was good. You don't know what this week's going to bring. Like, we got to go play Marshall. We got to beat Marshall, and then we'll figure out the rest of it later. And if your focus goes anywhere else, I think that's dangerous. But we're going to get these guys reps in practice, and the more game reps we can get them, the better, because we do know that's going to be important. I mean, I totally agree with you. But there's not much we can do about that right now. Let's go have a great Tuesday. Let's get these guys as many reps as we can, and then we'll kind of, we have an opportunity to get guys in the game. We will.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
15 minutes with Chip. Off the old clock. We're going to open it up. Coach, second row right, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
You've done, I don't think you've done it here yet, but in the past, you've often put 2 running backs on the field at the same time. Just what's the pros and cons of using a 2 running back set?
Well, the pros are if you have 2 really good ones, it puts a lot of problems on the defense. The other part of it is, can one of those running backs play receiver? Can they line up in the slot? And we believe Trey does. Trey does it a lot, especially when we're in empty sets, and can be a mismatch from that standpoint. The cons are you have 2 running backs in the game at the same time, and what's your depth at the running back position? How many running backs do you have? You always want to try to keep them fresh. I think Carlos has done a really good job of rotating those guys right now. So there's always positives to having 2 on the field at the same time, but there are some negatives in terms of, if they're both going full speed 6, 7 plays in a row, and they both need a breather, then you got to take them out. So, it's really depending on what your depth is at the running back spot.
Has James giving you confidence that you feel like you have that level of depth?
Yeah, James has. I think James has done a really nice job in the first 2 games. We were excited about him coming into the first 2 games, but you never know. It's kind of like the old adage of players like a tea bag. You don't know what you get till you put it in hot water. And I think with James, you learn that he's a pretty good football player. So we're excited about his growth and how he continues to pick up what we're doing and what we can put on his shoulders. So that adds to the depth at the running back spot.
Front row, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Chip, that was the first year that on the field they can use the iPads outside in the press box. But how much of an advantage is that? What are you able to do with that you couldn't do in the past? Well, people actually did it in the past, but they always were looking at the scoreboard to try to see the replay. It was funny when we were in the NFL, there were people that said they didn't want to do it, but every coach in the NFL was always like this and watching the replay up there. Now you get to run it back. So I think it's cleaned some things up. Sometimes it takes to halftime before you can make a adjustment because the guys in the booth are trying to communicate that what they saw, because the guys in the booth can obviously see the game better. The guys on the field can feel the game better. So I think it just kind of puts people all on the same page, and I think you can make corrections a lot faster. Was it something where you wondered, why couldn't we do this in the past? Or what was you wondered it because they showed the replay in the stadium, but they wouldn't let you have the replay on the sideline. So, it's progress. We're all either you can't fight it. We're all moving in different directions. At some point in time, they may actually have videos in their helmets. I don't know, but just whatever the rules are, we're going to adapt to them. So,
Jim May, front row right, Letterman row.
I like a teabag line. I asked Ryan this, wanted to ask you two quickies. Number one, how important is it to somehow or another, based on what you saw Saturday, Quinn Ewers leaving the game, Wisconsin losing a starting quarterback, to have a competent backup that you feel real good about, and how do you generate that? And then number two, do you feel much better about your offensive line today than you did 2 weeks ago from the standpoint of how it played in your last game? And progress, et cetera.
Two drastically different questions right there. So,
I think
yeah, because they're both on offense, but that's about the only thing I can fish those two together with. The quarterback spot, obviously you want to develop depth, and you do look around the country and who's lost their quarterbacks and or a guy goes down for a time. But the other part of that is, it's not like Will's been here for 5 years. Will's played football for 5 years, so he needs as many reps as he can in Ohio State's offense. So you're in that fine line of how many reps do we get Will of live game speed in a stadium where it's real. It's the toughest position to play because you can't practice it the way you play it. What I mean by that, and I don't care at what level it is, quarterbacks don't get hit in practice, but quarterbacks get hit in games. So it's a different game for a quarterback when it's live. So to try to balance how many reps does Will need to continue to get better and continue to grow is, we finish our last out-of-conference game here against Marshall and then head into conference play. Do we feel like he's got enough under his belt so that when those situations come up in a game that he's experienced it already as an Ohio State player? I know he has as a Kansas State player, but not. But you also need to develop your quarterbacks because, we always say you're a chin strap away from playing. If you get your helmet knocked off on the field of play, you're out for at least one play. So someone's got to go in the game. So that's a fine line, and you always have to continue to try to walk it. But we hope that, I think Devin and Julian did a nice job when they were in. Lincoln got 3 snaps, but it was really late in the game, and there was more handoffs than anything else. But, we'll see how that continues to go. But you do have to have 2 quarterbacks, and, especially when you're going to play such a long season. If you're going to play a 16, 17-game season, at some point in time, one of those guys is going to be called upon during a critical time, and you hope that they get enough reps under their belt that they feel comfortable when they go in there. And then, he may have 3 or 4 more after us, but the offensive line, I think they made pretty good strides from game 1 to game 2, more from a communication standpoint of being on the same page. And now adding Donnie back this week, I think, adds a little bit more depth to that position because Austin played really well himself. So I think Austin took full advantage of the reps that he got in the 2 games that he was in there. So we'll continue to monitor that situation. But I was really impressed with how they went from game 1 to game 2.
Thanks. Andy Andrews, Lemon Warriors.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stood out watching the offense just pre-snap is the motion and the different window dressings you guys do in formations. Just what is the importance of that from your perspective in using pre-snap motion?
Yeah, I think pre-snap motions are 2 things. Number one, to gain an advantage numerically against the defense. So if you move and they're not moving, you gain 1 hat from one side to the other side. And then number 2, to discern what they're in. So it helps the quarterback from an understanding standpoint. Now, I think all of our motions and shifts have a reason to them. It's just not, hey, let's just do this for this play because it looks cool. So the quarterback knows what he's looking for and what indicators he should get when we do it. So it gives him some information, but also at times you're trying to gain a numeric advantage from one side or the other. So if they lined up over here and we bring an extra guy over, if they don't bring an extra guy over, now we have an extra guy into the boundary. So we're trying to work the advantages from a number standpoint with motions and shifts, but also discern some information about what they're going to do, especially teams that are really good at disguising.
Right behind him, Tony Gruden, Buckeye Huddle.
Last week being the improvement week, what was the focus with you and Will on what you needed to work on?
Yeah, it was different for each player. So we graded every player during the week. Each player had a different set of things that they had to work on. Will, there were some real technical things from a fundamental standpoint that as we continue to drill and play action pass and demeanor and what his fundamental footwork is going to be on those plays. Some of it was just recognizing pre-snap indicators of, where is the free safety and is he discerning? Can you discern from where his alignment is, what the coverage is going to be pre-snap before we get to post-snap situations? So Will continues to grow every day. That's one thing I love about him. He's a lifelong learner. He comes in here every day really hungry about how do I get a little bit better every day. And I think last week he did improve and from Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in training sessions.
Right next door, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
I'm sure you were at least aware of Quinshon before you got here and started working with him, but maybe where has he surprised you as a running back and what have you learned about him? I know it's still early on.
Yeah, I had just really watched highlights of him, in terms of what he did at Ole Miss. But how well he sees the field for someone his size. Usually, guys that big are a little bit more of a batting ram type player. Although he has those qualities, he's a tough, physical, hard-nosed guy that will square up a linebacker in a hole and pick him up in pass protection. But he's got great feet and vision for someone his size, and it's really surprising sometimes when you see how he works his way through a hole or what doesn't look like a hole, but he can work himself through it because of his vision and his footwork. And I think putting that on somebody that size, a 220-pound plus running back, is kind of a rare commodity. Usually that's a little bit smaller guy, but he has those qualities. But he's also got a real tough physicalness to him that he can really, if you have to, and there isn't a hole there, he can create a hole himself. So
fourth row right, and Andrew Backstrom, Letterman row.
Yeah, Chip, we saw some 3 tight end sets, 4 tight end set. How is that depth of that tight end room allowing you more flexibility on offense right now?
It has, and I think it's a credit to those guys in that they all playing time here is earned. So, when you say, hey, we're going to run 3 tight end formations, it's not, well, whatever 3 tight ends are there. That conversation comes up in staff meetings because we really believe in those guys. And so what they can do, so I think, G's played a lot of football here. Jelani played a little bit last year. I saw him on town. Will played at Ohio. I think Bennett's done a really nice job himself. So the 4 of those guys have really earned it. And I think we'll continue to work through some of those packages and see what's the best fit for those guys.
Right next door, Andrew Gillis, Cleveland.com.
Chip, what has Seth McLaughlin brought you guys to the first 2 games, and how valuable is it to have a guy who's played that much football at center?
Yeah, hey, that's a great point. I think really stability. Kind of he's been there, done that. He learned very quickly. It really just for Seth, it was how do we call it and what is our terminology, as opposed to what he did when he was at Alabama. But he's seen a lot, and he's played in some really, really big games. And so I think the other players on the line kind of look to him because they know he has that experience. But I think the stability he's brought in, really the leadership at the center spot, that guy has to make all the line calls for you, and to have someone in there that can do that has the experience that Seth has really helped.
Deep left, Tim Hall, 97.1 on the Fan.
Chip, another one about the running backs. What would you say has surprised you or just impressed you the most about Trayvion's play in 2 games?
Yeah, what impressed me the most about Trayvion is just his work ethic. He's a guy that is out there every single day, and he only knows one speed. You never have to talk to Trey about effort. And he's always trying to get better. Like you watch him in walk through, and it's meticulous with his steps and where his hand placement is, and he's not just going through the motions. So, I think he's a explosive play waiting to happen. And I've seen those on highlight tapes of what he's done here in the past, and I think he's close. He's really close, and so hopefully, in these next couple of Saturdays, we're going to see him really take one through, not only through the 2nd level, but through the 3rd level, and go all the way, because he has that type of breakaway speed, which I think is kind of rare. He's one of the fastest kids on this team and can really, really move. So, excited to see him take that to the next level. But I love his physicality as he runs. I love what he's done in pass protection for us in our first 2 games. So, excited to see him continue to grow this season.
All right, Austin Ward, podcast.
Chip, when you talk about the pre and post snap decision making there for Will, when you guys are in these RPO looks, it seems like he's in command of that. How frequently is he making the right or correct or optimal decision with the football right now?
He's been really good in his decision-making process. I always chuckle because some people, I don't know how when I watch tape myself, like, is that an RPO situation or not an RPO situation? Because that could just be a hard ball call, and his job is to hand the ball off. Now, his fake may be that, but he didn't have anybody that was a relief throw for him or wasn't even looking to have a relief throw. But he's done a good job in what we've asked him to do. Really, we talk to our quarterbacks about being the run game coordinator, and he has to, make the play right. Whether sometimes it's a check system, we're supposed to go right, and there's a lot of guys over there, so we got to go the other way. Other times he can make it right by throwing off of those guys. So he's been really good in his decision making in the run game.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Does Will do anything that makes him effective as a thrower out of some of the play action or RPO stuff? He's been very efficient in those situations.
Yeah, I think it's a combination. Number one, he's really good fundamentally with it. Part of it is who are you trying to affect with the fake. You can't fake and hold the ball from everybody, so everybody's going to see it at some point in time. But there's certain people that you're trying to get to bite on the run fake, and I think he understands that and is really aware of that. And then number two, I think because we do run the ball well, that's part of the biggest thing is you can have an extensive play action game, but if you're not running the ball very well, I don't think they're going to bite on it. Most defenses need to be lactose intolerant. That means they can't bite the cheese. But if we do a good job running the ball, then we think they're going to bite the cheese. So that helps.
Bill Landis, Kings of the North.
Chip, when you're trying to figure out the thing or things that maybe the offense does best that you're sort of maybe want to hang your hat on a little bit, how often do you feel like you have a pretty good beat on that before the season? Or how much is it like a fact-finding mission does it become in the first couple of games? And then I guess where do you think you are with this particular group?
I think it's always an ongoing process because your lineup changes as the season goes along. So, I mean, Donnie's an example. Donnie wasn't with us for the first two, but will be with us in this game. So where is our strength as we add Donnie to the lineup? So I think that's an ongoing process. You don't ever arrive and say, hey, now I know we are worth this, because that can change drastically, with a sprained ankle or something where you're going to have to adapt and improvise as the week goes on. And then obviously the other thing, the biggest factor in that too is what changes is what are you facing defensively? And so is how they deploy their 11 drastically different than how the team the week before did. So, may say, hey, man, you guys really ran the ball well against this team. Well, this team put 10 guys on the line of scrimmage and we're going to take it away, so we have to throw the ball over the top. There's just a sheer numbers deal that you deal with that way. But you're always learning because I think your lineup changes subtly and sometimes drastically, as the season goes along, and you're going to be able to adapt to that.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Chip, when you talk about the tight ends and being able to go 3 and 4 tight end services, how involved can they be in the passing game out of that? And what limitations?
Well, Bennett had a 55-yarder for a touchdown, so I would say somewhat.
I'm trying to lean into like the pros and cons of going into those bigger sets.
Yeah.
Being able to.
No, that's a great point. There are pros and cons. The more surfaces you build and the tighter they are to the football, then the less you can technically stretch the field. But I still think there are plays that can come out of those sets because the mindset of the defense when those guys come into the game should be they're going to run the ball. And I would say percentage-wise, we're probably going to run the ball more than we're going to throw the ball in those formations. But there's a give and take there. I think you have to always try to complement it. We may have 2 or 3 good runs out of this, but we got to have a play action pass. We got to have a completion. We got to have a shot play out of what's our shot play out of this? So it's interesting on how defenses, when you look at like we think but we know our personnel. We know knowing our personnel, this is how we would defend it. Then you go to play another team and it's like, wow, I never thought they would do it that way. So here's our answer if they do it that way. So I think you have to be prepared for it because the issue is sometimes you're not going to see tape from other opponents that have presented that. So you don't know how teams line up to these formations because in the first 3 games that they played, they've never seen that formation. That doesn't mean they don't know how to line up. It just means we don't know how they're going to line up to it. They certainly do. So sometimes you're going to find that out as the game expresses itself.
We got time for one final question. Tim, take us home. Just get us to 100. I know you got a question. Tim,
Me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. How pleased have you been?
Is this a 3-parter or a 4-parter?
No, it's just one.
Okay.
Jerry just said one. How pleased have you been with the run game to this point? I mean, are you seeing a crispness there, for want of another term? And how much have you just watched on video Will's ability affected like Western Michigan and the way it played?
Yeah.
You understand what I mean? His ability to run.
Yes,
Yeah.
and he is a factor in the run game. So him carrying out fakes or the ability to carry out fakes, I think people have to respect that because you can look at what he did at Kansas State and say, hey, this kid, when he has the ball in his hands, can do some different things. And I think a lot of times there have been plays that we've called to see if Will can run the ball, but they've sat on him. So then he hands the ball off. So I think he's made some good decisions from that standpoint. So we're pleased. But I don't think we're ever satisfied. I think we can be better in the run game, and I think that's what our goal is each week: is can we be better this week coming up than we were the week before? And if so, how do we continue to grow as a group? You hope that your worst game was your first game, and that you continue to grow as the season goes along because you got that bank of experience that you can fall back on to say, hey, what did we learn coming out of the Akron game that we took into the Western Michigan game, and did we get a little bit better on what we did in the run game? The answer is yes, then you're moving in the right direction. Now, I don't know how Saturday plays out, but are we going to be better in terms of running the football against Marshall than we were against Western Michigan? Then we're moving in the right direction, and that's what our goal is every week. But, I'm proud of what we're doing. I think we're pretty efficient right now. We can be better. We had an 80-yarder call back. So some of the, making sure we have the hands on where they're supposed to be on the perimeter. And then I think we've been really efficient without having the ball on the ground so far. So knock on wood, we haven't turned the ball over in 2 games, but that's critical to our success here is making sure that we end the play, every single play that we get the ball handed to us, we end the play by handing it back to an official. So
Coach, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sharon.
Here this fall. I wanted to get to 100 people. All right, folks, we're going to go right around 10 minutes here with Will. Who do we have here? Jeff Gilbert, press pros, third row left.
Well, coaches have talked a lot about blocking, and the line feels like it's getting better. The pass protection's good from your running backs. What about your receivers? I mean, obviously they're great to throw to. How are you seeing their development, especially young guys, blocking downfield, setting edges for you guys?
Yeah, I think that's something that they're definitely trying to work on. And I mean, obviously, when you look at receivers, you don't really think about their ability to block or their ability to, run guys off or whatever. It's obviously like, the catches they're making or the plays. But I think, these guys really have bought into, if you make a good block, man, like that's a huge play for us. I mean, there was a play last game where we ran like speed option to the right, and Carnell just drove his dude, down the field. And then the next play had like a 38-yard catch. Like that stuff adds up, man. It's like that stuff's important, and we're trying to put an emphasis on that stuff. And I think they're doing a really good job. I think, we're just, football is a simple game, man. It's blocking and tackling, throwing and catching. And, at the end of the day, I think we're getting better, and, we're never satisfied, and, we're always going to keep working to get better. But I think, they're doing some really good things down the field and in the run game.
Second row right, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com. This might sound
a weird question, but are you a film junkie?
Yeah, 100%. I love watching film. Like I always have been, I actually this semester have class at night, and don't tell my professors, but sometimes I watch a little film in class. I just love, I like to watch film like every day, like whatever it is. Like I just like to wake up and watch a little bit of something. I love the game of football, and I love the chess game that it is. I love how much strategy goes into it. And I think that's a fun part of it, like being able to, come out and have something planned for your opponent that they're not ready for, or seeing something before it happens, I think is really fun. And that's a really fun part of the game for me.
So do you have those moments in games where you're watching the film and you're getting prepared, and then you see a defense come out in something and you automatically know the answer before they get the ball?
Yeah. Like that is one of the most satisfying feelings. I feel like I've said that, like it's, when you come out and you're like, all right, I know what they're going to do, or, all right, they're rotating to the field here. It's probably going to be some sort of field pressure. And then that comes and you're like, all right, it just is a reassuring feeling of like, man, all that work that I put in, all the preparation I put in pays off. And, I've been there, I've been a true freshman when you're out there and you don't know what it is. And you're like, man, what the heck is this look? And that's a terrible feeling to have when you're not prepared or not recognizing what they're doing. And I think I've been there enough times to where I'm like, man, I'm never going to let that happen again. And I always want to be ready and prepared in the best way that I possibly can be, so that I'm never in a situation where I don't at least have some general idea of what's going on.
Bill Rabinowitz, front row. Columbus Dispatch.
For 4 years at Kansas State, you didn't have the benefit of using the tablets or iPads on the sideline. How much of an advantage is it? How do you use it?
I think it's great. I used it in high school. We had like iPads, and I thought it was a really good part of the game. Like I missed it when I went to college. I was like, man, I wish I could just come over here and say, hey, what happened on that play? Because I like going back over some plays, especially the ones that didn't go well. I'm like, what happened on that? I like to look at it. But obviously, the last couple of years, my first 4 years in college, you could just talk about it and say, hey, this is what I thought it was. This is what I thought it was. And obviously, you can't get any confirmation until after the game. But most of the time, now, like I can come off the sideline and watch every single drive. Like I've probably watched the film after a game. I've probably already watched the game film like on the sideline, but it incorporates another element into the game. You're able to see things a little better, make some different in-game adjustments. I think it's a really cool part of the game, and I'm glad that they made that a part of the college game.
Can you think of a time when you saw something that maybe confirmed or maybe didn't confirm something that you thought you saw and it helped you?
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. You come off the field, you're like, oh man, I thought they clouded that look to the field there, and maybe it's a buzz look where it was actually not the corner, it was a linebacker buzzing out, and the guy up top was a corner rather than maybe a safety and a cloud look. And sometimes you get fooled and you think it's one thing and it's actually another, and that can be a good way to look at the film and see that. And then sometimes, again, like confirming something, hey, I thought it was cloud here, it was cloud, and just seeing that look and how they play it, maybe seeing what do they do pre-snap to show that that's how they're going to play that on that, based on their alignments, whatever, just kind of going through that. And obviously, going into the game, we feel like we should have a good idea of what they're going to do. And it's really just kind of confirming what happened and what we thought was going to happen versus what actually happened is kind of what we use the iPads for.
6th row right, Cameron T. Robinson, The Athletic.
Will, Chip mentioned the stability that Sept brings to that front line. And I'm curious to get your perspective, in what ways that show up, especially when the first week you had 2 first-time guards on the field.
I think he brings a certain level of experience and of just maturity. And I think having that guy at the center position is crucial, man. In my 4 years, I've been blessed to have some good centers, and Sept's up there, man. He's making calls. He's the juice guy. He's bringing the juice. He's smart. I mean, he's making some calls before I even make them. And a lot of times that makes my job easier. If I'm not having to make a ton of protection calls, I'm just having to kind of echo what he's saying. Sometimes he just beats me to the punch. He's like, hey, we're going to, do this on this, protection on 3rd down. And he already knows it, and having a guy that, you can bounce ideas off of and that you can trust to make calls like that. I think, that has been really, really big for this O-line. And I think he's fit in really well with the group. I think the guys really mesh well with him. And he's just become a really important part of this offense. And I'm really glad that we did get him. And I'm glad, cause when we were on our visit together, man, we were talking about how we were going to do this. And it's cool to see, how it's all worked out and how we've made it to this point now.
Right next door, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Road.
Will, did you realize that the first 2 games here were 2 of the 3 largest crowds you've ever played in front of?
Didn't know that until you just said that. That's pretty cool.
Was there any nerves those first 2 games, and do you feel like you're settled into every aspect of everything now that you've been in the shoot, not just once, but now you've done it twice, you have the routine, things like that before you guys get into Big Ten play?
Yeah, I'm definitely settled in more. It feels right. It feels like home. I know I said the first game felt like a little bit like an away game and all that, but I'm settled in now. This is what we do. I get the routine. I get the game week, what it looks like. Obviously it's cool, man. I've played in front of big crowds. I've obviously this is 2 of the bigger crowds I've played in front of, but I've played in the games, so I wouldn't say it's necessarily super nerve wracking. I've been there. I don't get super nervous anymore. I try to just appreciate it and accept it for what it is, and just say, man, I only have 1 year here. I'm going to appreciate every moment I have out on that field, playing in front of these fans. It's a blessing, and I'm just trying to take it one day at a time and not let any moment pass me by, because it's a pretty cool opportunity I have and that we have as a team this year. And I think we have a really special group, and we want to just soak in every last minute we can and make the most out of this season.
Front row right, Austin Ward, podcast.
Chip pointed out that I have no idea if you actually have an RPO play called, because I'm not a coordinator or a quarterback. I'm just watching the game. When you've had an option on a play, how often are you making the optimal or best decision so far?
I feel pretty good about how I've done with my decisions in the run game and in the RPO game. That's the point of an RPO sometimes, is that you shouldn't know whether it's a designed run or whether we have a pass off of it. Like, the casual fan probably doesn't really understand that. And that's kind of how it should be. It should look like just a pass if it's an RPO and I pull it and throw it, and it's just the being able to keep the rhythm of it and making the right decisions. Like, it's pretty clear when I make a bad decision on an RPO, but you don't really see it when it's a good decision, which is a good thing, so I think I've done well with it. I think it's something that we need to continue to work on and work through. And as long as I can, just keep us on schedule and not force things, make the right decisions with the football, with the guys that we have, just let them do the rest. And, we've been blocking really well. I think, the running backs have been doing a good job, and the receivers are obviously going to get open. So, for me, it's just taking what the defense gives me and not trying to do too much and make the perfect play, but just, make things right.
And final question, Tim May.
Yeah.
Let him roll.
Yeah, I like that fake to air on one play last week.
Mhm.
How much is your responsibility as a starting quarterback? You were this way at Kansas State. You had Avery Johnson coming along, and here you've got two guys who haven't played very much. How much do you feel is a responsibility on your part to make sure these guys are ready to play? If you watch football on Saturday, you know what I'm talking about. And yet you still want to keep something in your back pocket too. I would think that makes you special. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that the way I look at it, at least in my days and in my time here, is like it's a collective effort. And no matter what, I'm going to try and help those guys in the room to be as prepared and as ready as possible, because I've been there where, obviously, knock on wood, hopefully, nothing ever happens to me and hopefully, it's all good. But things happen, man. And college football is so unpredictable. You always have to be ready. And that's what we like to hang our hat on around here is, competitive excellence and, being ready when your number's called. And, I think that we just have such a good quarterback room that, just dudes that I just like being around. And I like pouring into, maybe the younger guys that, I've done it. I've had experience, I've gone through the ups and downs of college football before, and I'm going to go through more, I'm sure. But, in imposing as much knowledge as that I have and that I can on these younger guys in the room, because it's a cycle, and they're going to be next and they're going to go through things. And there are things that I wish people told me before they happen to me. And I just want to help these guys as much as I can, just because we have such a good relationship and we're all in this thing together. And I know there's 5-6 of us in the room, but we're all there's only one quarterback on the field at one time. But we're all in this for the same reason. We're all here to win a national championship and hoist that trophy up at the end of the year. And I think that's the thing that's most important. So we're all pushing each other to get better every single day. And, we're just trying to develop each other and just be the best team that we can right now and for the future going forward.
We've got time for one final question. Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Will, you've been really efficient throwing off play action in some of the RPOs. Is there something about what you like about those situations that you feel suits your skill set, or just why do you think you? Yeah,
I think the system that we have makes it easy for me, because if I don't have the run, if I don't have the pass, then we can just give it. We can run the ball, and there's some different things that you can do with the RPO game where you're not necessarily just throwing the ball every play, or you're not necessarily throwing the ball into tight windows. You're more taking it as it comes. If someone blitzes and seventh guy adds to the box, then that's when we're kicking it out to a good numbers advantage outside. It's little things like that we're just trying to take advantage of our numbers battles and play the numbers game with them. And every play is different, and I can't give too broad of a statement on it, because there's so many different RPOs, different plays that we have, and every play is different in its own way. But, I think the way that our run game and our pass game complement each other makes it pretty easy for me to just dish the ball around and not have to force things.
Well, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Good job, buddy.